Hello historians and welcome back to another episode. Today we are going to be exploring the early life of the most notorious monarch in English history. Known for going through wives like money, the monarch we are exploring today is King Henry VIII. However, during the time we're exploring today, he would not have been King Henry VIII. He would have been Henry Tudor, Duke of York, or eventually the Prince of Wales. Henry Tudor Jr., as I like to call him, was born at Greenwich Palace on the 28th of June 1491 to King Henry VII and his wife and queen Elizabeth of York. Henry was the couple's third surviving child, with an older brother Arthur, Prince of Wales, born in 1487, and an older sister Margaret, born in 89. Henry was considered relatively unimportant compared to his brother Arthur during his early years, as it was expected that Arthur would go on to become king, and as a result, Henry spent his childhood with his sisters and mother. If you look at Henry VIII's handwriting, it is very similar to that of his mother Elizabeth and his younger sister Mary. This suggests that Elizabeth may have taught them to write, and we can presume that they had a close bond, one that may not have existed between Henry and his father. As the spare to the throne, Henry's education included music, languages, poetry, and sport subjects that would not best prepare him for kingship. These lessons were reserved and offered to his brother Arthur instead. Thanks to his grandmother, Lady Margaret Beaufort, Henry, Duke of York, had a passion for learning and was the most educated king to have ascended the English throne so far. He could speak and write fluent French and Latin, he could understand Italian, and thanks to his first wife Catherine of Aragon, by 1520 he could converse in Spanish, which quite frankly is more than what she could do. By the end of 1507, bear in mind she'd been in the country for just under a decade, she still couldn't speak English. Lazy. Henry loved reading, but he started to suffer with recurring headaches and migraines in 1519, and as a result he found reading and writing somewhat tedious and painful. He also had a talent for maths and a love for astronomy, something that he shared with Sir Thomas More. On the 9th of November 1501, Henry, Duke of York, met his future sister-in-law/wife at Deptford. Edward Stafford, the Duke of Buckingham, and the Duke of York welcomed Catherine as she arrived, and they conducted her to her lodging at Lambeth Palace. Later that month, on the 14th of November, Catherine of Aragon wed Henry's older brother Arthur, Prince of Wales, at St Paul's Cathedral. The Prince and Princess of Wales rode off to Baynard's Castle, where the wedding banquet took place in the Great Hall. Catherine, rather stately and elegantly, was clicking her castanets, while Henry, as a true Englishman, whipped off his gown and whirled his sister Margaret across the floor, leaping and twirling to the music. This supports what we know about Henry in later life with his love of music and dancing. Now, it might have been down to his age, or the fact that he was second in line to the throne, but Henry, Duke of York, was not well known to the people. I mean, they knew he existed, but he kept out of the limelight for much of his life. All of this privacy, though, would come to an end when Henry's brother Arthur died on the 2nd of April 1502. His brother's death changed everything for Henry. Henry was now heir to the throne, and his education took a swift turn, as he was now being trained for kingship. He was expected to attend more public engagements, so the public could actually recognise him, and his father became increasingly overprotective of his son. The Duke of York would experience more pain on the 11th of February 1503, when his mother Elizabeth died from childbirth complications, trying to provide another heir to the throne. As established earlier, Henry Tudor had a close bond with his mother, so it's understandable that the 12-year-old prince would have been heartbroken at his mother's death. The possibility of another heir to the Tudor throne died with Elizabeth. Henry VII had one son left, and as a result was prepared to protect him at all costs. Henry, Duke of York, was not allowed to leave his room, except for exercise. On the 25th of June, Henry, Duke of York, and Catherine of Aragon, so his brother's widow, were formally betrothed, and they were given papal dispensation in the December, on the condition that Catherine had not consummated her marriage with Arthur. That's a debate for another day. Anyway, back to her husband. The end of 1503 onwards must have been a very lonely experience for Henry, being held prisoner in his own room, losing both his mother and brother within 12 months. His sister Margaret then decides to go to Scotland in August 1503. I mean, it's not really her decision, it's more like her father arranged the marriage for her, so she had to go. But this only leaves Henry with his younger sister Mary and their father, who Henry did not have the best relationship with. This might explain why Henry had been drawn to his sister and Catherine of Aragon. Henry and Catherine were not permitted to spend regular time with each other, as his father strived to keep them apart. This also may explain why in later life Henry specified that the line of succession should go through his sister Mary and writing Margaret and her descendants out of the line of succession. The three of them could have found solace in each other. When I say three, I mean Mary, Henry and Catherine, when they were permitted with each other's company, as they had all lost a mother. Elizabeth had also been a mother figure to Catherine, a brother or a husband. On the 18th of February 1504, Henry, Duke of York, is formally created the Prince of Wales. I will be now referring to him as such until he is king. On the 26th of November 1504, Catherine's mother, Isabella of Castile, died, literally devaluing Catherine overnight. King Henry VII was now less keen for his son, the Prince of Wales, to marry this minor princess, as she was not the powerful infanta she once was, and as a result, the night before the Prince of Wales's 14th birthday, King Henry VII made his son renounce his vows in front of the Bishop of Winchester on the grounds that he was too young to make such an important decision. The secret meeting with the bishop was to allow Henry to break off the engagement if a better match came around for his son, but also keep the engagement going as a backup. So what it's saying here is that Henry VII wanted his cake and he wanted to eat it, but he didn't necessarily have said cake. Poor Catherine, she was none the wiser, nor did she know that when her sister and brother-in-law, Queen Juana of Aragon and Castile and Philip the Handsome, arrived in England in 1506, that they were actually discussing replacing Catherine as the future bride for the Prince of Wales with their own daughter and Catherine's niece Eleanor. Philip the Handsome died in the September of 1506, and that was the last of the marriage negotiations. As a result, King Henry VII allowed Catherine and the Prince of Wales to spend quality time with each other from the late summer to the autumn of 1506. It was around this time that Juana's father, Ferdinand, became ruler of Castile and Aragon again, and therefore Catherine was now seen in a more favourable light. The two bonded, and the Prince of Wales never hinted at this secret rejection of his betrothal, still referring to Catherine as "my most dear and well-beloved consort, the princess of my wife." The king, noticing their closeness, didn't approve of it, as he was trying to arrange a better match for his son, so he sent Catherine away to live at Fulham Palace. The Prince of Wales would see Catherine again intermittently, as she was present for the tournaments that were held to celebrate the Prince of Wales' 16th birthday in 1507. During this time, King Henry VII had strived to stabilise a country that had been in civil war, and also to try and secure his own dynasty, and he had succeeded in strengthening the crown both financially and in its ability to do justice. Although all of this would come to an end on the 21st of April 1509, when King Henry VII died. Henry was notorious for undoing his father's work both financially and politically. Henry VIII liked having parties and he liked spending money. On his deathbed, King Henry VII admitted to his son that he was concerned about how poorly he had treated Catherine and commanded his son to do the honourable thing and marry her. This may have been due to his fear over the lack of succession and not solely guilt. Although the Prince of Wales had renounced his vows, that had been done in secret. Only the bishop and the two Henrys were privy to that information. And now, one of them was going to take that information to his grave. And remarkably, they couldn't find the bishop. The new King Henry VIII was hesitant at first. Catherine was his brother's widow, and in Tudor times, that would have been viewed as his sister. However, Ferdinand promised Henry VIII a full dowry upon consummation and reassured Henry that the Pope had given a dispensation. He then gave the example of the King of Portugal, who had married two of Catherine's sisters in succession and was blessed with numerous offspring. It was now Ferdinand who wanted an alliance between England and Spain and told his daughter that he loved her, the most of his children, and looks on the King of England like a son. As sweet as that sounds, it's not really saying much when 3 of your 5 children are dead, and the other surviving child you personally had imprisoned due to mental illness so you could usurp her throne. Henry, Prince of Wales, became King Henry VIII upon his father's death at the age of 17. He had been with his father in his bedchambers when he had died, and the public were informed of the former king's death 2 days later. The new king met with the Privy Council in early June, and they urged him to marry the Princess Catherine and fulfil the treaty. Henry VIII agreed that there were many good reasons for the marriage, but above all, he told them, he desired her above all women. He loved her and longed to wed her. The couple wed days later on the 11th of June, 1509, and later that month, the newlyweds had a joint coronation on the 23rd of June. Henry VIII sat in King Edward I's coronation chair and received the crown of St. Edward the Confessor. Within the first few days of his reign, King Henry VIII released a general pardon for the country of anyone who might have been in trouble under his father's reign. Henry's basically smearing his father's rule and using his father's unpopularity to boost his own and gain the support of the people. This pardon, no surprise, was well received by the Tudor public. In doing so, he is sending a message to his subjects that he knew people had suffered under his father's reign, and he will do what he can to right those wrongs, trying to paint a picture of him being the greatest king in history. It's easy to see why some historians view Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon's marriage as a love match, over an arranged match, of which I kind of believe it's both. I'm more on the belief that Henry did have general fondness for his first wife, but I also believe the marriage was done out of convenience. I mean, she was already there, it was a good match, it was easy. But what do you think? As always, I hope you enjoyed this look into the early life of King Henry VIII. And if you did, please support me any way you can, whether it's subscribing or listening to another one. If you want some more background knowledge, check out my exploration into Henry's father, King Henry VII. Or stick around for the next one, where I'll be exploring King Henry VIII's early reign. But until then, have a wonderful day.